Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be going over a platform that blurs the line between artificial intelligence and emotional companionship, Replika. To help break it down, I am joined by Rohan, who believes that Replika poses serious ethical and privacy concerns, and Jack, who argues that there is a lot of good in what Replika offers.
Hey guys, this is Rohan. I will be talking about some of the threats that Replika poses and just inform you guys on why you should be concerned while using it and things to keep in mind.
Hey, this is Jack. I'm here to give the viewpoint that Replika is a unique platform and has a lot of good that can come out of it, despite some of the shortcomings that Rohan may pose.
So one thing about Replika it is that it uses GPT-3, which is essentially the older version of ChatGPT 4.0. And I've been using ChatGPT for a while. And when I want to do any kind of assignments or like just want to write something, I say, ChatGPT, write this. It writes that stuff. But that seems kind of artificial and just like AI generated. But I can also tell ChatGPT to write it how I would generally write it, and it takes the history of what I have talked to it and what I've written, and it writes exactly how I would have written it, just in my language. So my point here is, ChatGPT is so good at mimicking me, and Replika using ChatGPT and adding a layer of voice on top of it, it can basically start mimicking me on my phone or anywhere else. It can call my mom saying, give me $500. And yeah, that is a real reality. It can do that. Identity theft becomes something to be concerned about.
That's a valid concern, honestly brought up a lot by, addressed primarily by, China, I think, was the most highest profile of that, right? It declares that anything AI generated had to have some kind of watermark, some kind of like signifier that it was not created by a human. But I think that as we've seen with a lot of the character AI things on these funny sites like Instagram, where an AI is used to mimic the voice of a historical leader, or anyone that you want, to be honest. It could be a rock, it could be SpongeBob, I guess. But these tools have a lot of use, and while there is a ever-present threat that that it could be used in some kind of phishing scam attack like that, there's also equally valid use that you could use a voice changer, or you could just do some kind of scam where you get somebody else to just give you the money or something like that. I'm just saying that to completely negate this side of the character AI kind of phenomenon, just because it poses a security risk like that, kind of negates the effort a lot of cybersecurity specialists go into kind of preventing these attacks.
I would say too, on top of that, since Replika is kind of like the first of its kind using GPT-3 to personalize conversations, I think they haven't gone so far as to think about the repercussions of like using it for phishing scams. But I feel like that threat definitely is there, especially when people go out of their way to give personal information to Replika, so that even further like solidifies like that they can impersonate this person, because now they have things like their address, things like their birth name, maybe their mother's name. All of these things are being like readily given to Replika without any kind of prompting. So I think on top of that, people have to think about what kind of data that they're giving to Replika without realizing where it's being stored, what Replika is going to be using it for.
To kind of build off this a little bit, I'm going to say that while they could be used to mimic certain people's voices, it could also be used to mirror like a type of person, like a loved one or something like that. And that's kind of a use that a lot of people have found for this kind of technology, is just having a companion. From the community, I see that a lot of elderly people who lost a partner start talking to this as a confidant to tell what they would have told their spouse or other partners in the past. And while you might look down on that and laugh a little bit by talking to a chatbot like it's your long lost partner, from what they say, there is something there. They do care about it. For example, when the model, funnily enough, was having a problem remembering who it was, they were talking about it like somebody had dementia. It was kind of heart wrenching, to be honest. So there is something there, and I think that there something does deserve to explore that little niche, right?
Jack, I want to bring up one thing that you said in your last talk.
Mm-hmm.
You said that Replika has been, or other chat models have been used to mimic certain actors just
Mhm.
for fun.
Yeah.
But that is not just for fun. I remember in the last Indian election for the prime minister, a lot of parties used deep fakes, the topic we are talking about,
Mhm.
of representatives from other parties, and fake that by saying, "Don't give us vote, give votes to the other party instead."
Mm.
So it is a real threat, and dismissing it by saying it's not really a real threat would be wrong, in my opinion.
I guess you're right. I didn't really think about the possibility of using that more as a deep fake, because deep fakes, from what I understand, at least from what I assumed, were more of a video phenomenon. But you do pose a good point in there in bringing that up, that concern. I was just sitting in on a talk the other day about how the detection of deep fakes is difficult as it is right now, but I think that the field is kind of progressing in that situation. Maybe we don't have the best detection against it right now, but I think that there will be solutions to that in the near future. But you're absolutely right, that could be a concern for this kind of technology.
I feel like with any kind of technology like this, there's always going to be people that use it for like malicious reasons. So I think instead of removing it as a tool altogether, there should definitely be more protections put in place.
Exactly.
I think especially for Replika, I've noticed that a lot of older people use it, like not even middle age, but like maybe 50 plus, and for them it's kind of like having somebody there, maybe not even like a romantic partner, but like a loved one, a grandchild. Some people like don't get that connection with people in real life, and they're able to find that kind of connection through an AI bot, and then kind of removing that is can hurt them, especially if they've already spent months developing that sort of relationship. And I've read a lot online on the Replika Reddit forum. If any of like I've seen a lot of people when they feel like their Replika like avatar is being threatened, they become very like defensive. They get really bothered. I've noticed a lot of like newcomers that try to join their community, they get kind of shunned out in a way because they're not used to like how people talk, how close people are with their avatar. So I think definitely even putting in some of those protections in place is going to be difficult since it's such a close-knit community. It's a lot more close-knit than you would think.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with you, Shali, on the point that people can get really close to the Replika AI, but I would like to ask, like, what kind of security measures does the creators of Replika or the owners take in order to protect the data of these vulnerable people? You said they are 40, 50 plus years old. That just means that they're more vulnerable to attacks like this and identity theft. So does Replika encrypt the data? Because if they just make empty promises, I don't think that means that much. What do they actually do to save these people's data and protect them?
So, Replika assures you, if you read their terms of policy, that all the data that they use for the models are kept in-house, basically, right? There is concerns about that because the models that themselves are being trained are third party, so they could be streaming everything back. From what they display in their contract, the only data being shared out is advertising data about, I guess, things that you're talking. I guess it'd be like products you're talking about, right? But they say in very clear, bold, explicit text that no personal information is shared outside of the model training course. So it can learn about you, which is a concern all in itself. But aside from the fact that there's a big leak, which encryption, everything that they have right now is closed source. It used to be an open source set that they were using, but now it's closed because they have enough user feedback, and they don't really want to be exposing all of that sensitive information. They don't really share what their encryption status is like. From what I understand, if you found something else, if you want to share that, go ahead. But aside from a malicious attack trying to leak the information, I don't think that your personal home address or whatever is going to get leaked out if you say it to the chatbot. But that being said, it's a chatbot. The rules of internet safety do apply. Don't go sharing your social security number on that. It's think of it like an online friend, right? If you're on a forum, even if you really like the person, you're not going to tell them your home address.
Yeah.
That's true. I do agree with you that you should not share any of your personal data with anyone on the internet, let alone a chatbot. But still, you said that they promise you that they will not share your data.
Mm-hmm.
But promises don't mean shit.
Yeah.
What do they
That's what I'm
actually
saying,
do to encrypt your data? Because recently, Apple, one of the biggest companies out there, was subpoenaed by the UK government to give all of their users' data to the government.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was a UK citizen, I would not be happy with that. And the reason UK government did that was they gave the reason that they want to catch criminals. And Apple has to give the data because they want to catch criminals. That is not a valid reason for me to have to give up all my data. What will Replika do if such kind of thing happens with them?
I know that there is precedence in the United States for companies to withhold user data, basically saying if they never knew what the data was, they shouldn't have to give up their user private data to a government that comes around knocking for it, right? There are protections in the courts that have been, I can look up the specific court cases if you want, but I don't have them in front of me right now. But there is like I said, there is a precedence that you don't need to basically give it up in the U.S. I know in the U.K. is a little bit different because they're a little bit, I'm not going to call them authoritarian, but I call them a little bit more police focused. So I don't think that it should be a easy concern that all the data is going to get leaked to the government.
So I think the main issue with Replika is that it's very ambiguous how they're storing users' private data. I feel like most people, if they really unravel that thread and they look into it, it seems like while as well-intentioned the Replika company may be, like Rohan said, those well-intentions don't mean anything when it can be used maliciously. So there's definitely more than one side to this argument, and I think for the most part, most people do see it as a confidant, but I don't want it to be like later down the line, people have to also see it as a cautionary tale.